For hundreds of thousands of General Motors customers across the United States, their dream vehicle has become a ticking time bomb on wheels. Nearly 600,000 GM trucks and SUVs, including flagship models like the Chevrolet Silverado, GMC Sierra, Cadillac Escalade, Tahoe and Yukon, are equipped with engines that could fail without warning at any moment. No dashboard alerts, no check engine light, just sudden, catastrophic failure, often at highway speeds, leaving drivers and families stranded in dangerous situations. This is not an isolated incident, nor is it a freak mechanical flaw. It is the largest automotive recall crisis of 2025, centered on GM's L87 6.2 LV8 engine, a power unit once marketed as one of the most advanced and durable in its class. What has emerged since the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened its investigation earlier this year paints a grim picture, one of corporate negligence, delayed accountability, and systemic cost-cutting that place profits above people's safety. Over the past 4 years, GM quietly received more than 28,000 consumer complaints related to this engine's failure. Internal documents reveal that company engineers and executives were aware of the issue as early as 2021, yet continued selling vehicles equipped with the same defective components. The result: over 14,000 incidents of total engine power loss, 12 confirmed crashes, and millions of dollars in damages that individual owners are now left to bear. This investigation dives deep into the timeline of GM's actions and inaction over those 4 critical years. It examines the manufacturing failures that caused the defect, the human cost for everyday vehicle owners, the legal battles now unfolding in federal courts, and the industry-wide implications for automotive reliability. Beyond GM's internal crisis lies a broader question: has the American automotive industry abandoned the principle of building vehicles meant to last? What began as a string of isolated failures has evolved into a symbol of an industry at a crossroads, where engineering integrity clashes with shareholder pressure. To understand how this happened, we begin with the people who paid the price first, not GM's executives, but the drivers who trusted the badge on their hood. Real quick, if you're into videos that cut through the noise and break things down clearly, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people find this. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. We've got more deep dives coming your way. Also, drop a comment and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your take. Now onto the video. The scale of this crisis becomes most tangible through the experiences of ordinary families blindsided by sudden mechanical failure. These are not exaggerated anecdotes. They are documented incidents reported through NHTSA's complaint database and GM's own warranty logs. Each case underscores a consistent, terrifying pattern. One moment, the engine is running perfectly, and the next, it locks up completely, cutting power steering, power brakes, and the ability to control a 6,000-pound vehicle hurtling down the highway. Take Sarah Thompson, a mother of 3 from Texas. Her 2022 Cadillac Escalade had only 18,000 miles on the odometer when the engine suddenly seized at 75 miles per hour on Interstate 35. There were no warning lights, no strange noises, just silence, followed by chaos. With her husband in the passenger seat and children in the back, Sarah coasted to the shoulder with seconds to spare before oncoming traffic swept past. It felt like the car just died mid-air, she later told investigators. The family escaped unharmed, but their $100,000 SUV was towed to a dealership, where the diagnosis was grim. Complete engine failure caused by bearing seizure due to contamination. In Michigan, Robert Davis, a small business owner, saw his company's future unravel in a matter of months. He had purchased 2 brand new Chevrolet Silverados for his landscaping business in 2022. 6 months later, one of the trucks suffered total engine failure on the interstate, nearly causing a collision. 3 months after that, the second Silverado met the same fate. Both required full engine replacements, each costing around $11,000, none covered under warranty. "I built my business on reliability," Robert said. "Now I can't guarantee a truck will even make it to the job site." Jennifer Lopez from Arizona faced an equally devastating financial blow. As a single mother, she saved for years to afford a used 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe, hoping it would last her family a decade. 8 months after purchase, Her engine failed completely on a suburban street during school pickup hour. But the repair estimate was $12,000, more than a third of the car's total value, and far beyond what she could afford. "I'm still paying the loan on a car I can't even drive," she said in an interview. These stories are not anomalies. GM's internal data acknowledges tens of thousands of similar complaints across the Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Escalade lineups. More than 14,000 of these failures occurred while the vehicle was in motion, a fact that transforms a mechanical problem into a serious public safety threat. What makes this crisis uniquely disturbing is the absence of warning. Drivers reported that the vehicle showed no signs of distress, no dashboard alerts, no oil pressure drops, and no gradual loss of performance. The engine simply locked solid, a mechanical seizure akin to slamming on invisible brakes at high speed. When viewed collectively, these incidents reveal a chilling truth. This was not a random wave of bad luck, but a systemic failure affecting an entire generation of GM's most profitable vehicles. And behind these failures lies a 4-year trail of ignored warnings, internal investigations, and corporate hesitation that would eventually lead to the largest recall in GM's recent history. The next section examines that timeline, the moment GM first became aware of the problem, how long they waited to act, and the critical opportunities they missed to protect consumers from disaster. When investigators began piecing together the internal paper trail behind the L87 engine failures, one pattern emerged. General Motors had known about the defect for nearly 4 years before taking public action. The timeline is not speculative. It comes directly from GM's own internal reports, warranty data, and communications later disclosed to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The first wave of engine failure complaints landed on GM's desks in April 2021, less than a year after the first affected trucks rolled off the assembly line. Engineers initially treated them as isolated cases, perhaps oil contamination, perhaps improper maintenance. But by late 2021, the volume of failures had grown large enough to trigger the company's first internal root cause analysis. That first investigation, launched in February 2022, yielded inconclusive results. GM engineers noted unusual wear on connecting rod bearings, but could not link it definitively to manufacturing error. Rather than halting production, GM quietly adjusted torque specification tolerances and kept building engines at full speed. By June 2023, a second, more comprehensive investigation was initiated after warranty claims began climbing sharply. This inquiry confirmed what field technicians had long suspected. Metallic debris left during the manufacturing process was contaminating the bearings, creating the conditions for catastrophic seizure. The fix would have required costly retooling at the St. Catharines, Ontario engine plant, a proposal that senior executives postponed, citing supply chain constraints and cost-impact analysis. 12 months later, in July 2024, GM launched a third internal review, this time under pressure from increasing customer backlash on social media and growing attention from safety advocates. Still, the company took no decisive action. Production continued. Marketing campaigns emphasized premium performance. Sales targets were met only after NHTSA formally intervened in January 2025. Following mounting public pressure and multiple class action petitions, did GM finally issue a voluntary recall in April 2025. By then, nearly 600,000 vehicles were already on the road. Thousands of engines had failed, and several accidents had been documented. The 4-year gap between first awareness and public recall is now the centerpiece of federal investigations. Regulators are asking why GM continued to ship affected engines and whether executives intentionally delayed disclosure to protect quarterly earnings. Corporate insiders have described the period as one of institutional denial. Each department saw pieces of the puzzle: engineers diagnosing wear, warranty teams handling claims, dealers reporting shortages, but no one elevated the crisis to a level demanding immediate recall. The result was a slow-motion corporate failure, where bureaucratic caution and financial pressure outweighed consumer safety. The question now shifts from when GM knew to why these engines failed in the first place. The next section turns inside the L87 V8 to understand exactly what went wrong and why the defect was destined to destroy engines from the day they left the factory. At the center of this crisis lies the L87 6.2-liter V8. a powerhouse GM proudly marketed as a blend of performance and durability, found in premium trims of Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Escalade models. It represented the pinnacle of GM's truck engineering, at least on paper. But beneath that marketing polish, a small but devastating imperfection was hiding in plain sight. The L87 engine relies on precision-machined connecting rod bearings, tiny metal shells that cushion the crankshaft as it spins at thousands of revolutions per minute. These bearings must be perfectly smooth and lubricated. Even microscopic debris can cause friction and heat. During the manufacturing surge of 2021, GM's St. Catharines engine plant began experiencing process control deviations. Quality assurance logs, later reviewed by investigators, revealed that metallic particles and residual polishing compound were occasionally left on bearing surfaces. That contamination acted like sandpaper inside the engine. Over time, or sometimes within weeks, the debris eroded the bearing surface, disrupting the oil film that prevents metal-to-metal contact. Once the protective layer failed, the bearing overheated, seized, and effectively welded itself to the crankshaft. The result was instant mechanical seizure, locking the engine solid with no chance for the onboard computer to issue a warning. Contrary to some early rumors, this was not a design flaw in the engine's architecture. The same core design, built with tighter tolerances and superior materials, powers GM's high-end Corvette LT2 sports cars. Not a single Corvette engine has reported comparable bearing seizures. The difference lay in manufacturing discipline. The Corvette engines were built under stricter quality regimes, with smaller batch sizes and enhanced inspection procedures. Truck engines, by contrast, were produced under immense cost and time pressure. In short, the crisis was born not in CAD software, but on the assembly floor. Documentation later surfaced, showing that engineers had recommended adding a secondary cleaning stage to remove machining residue. The proposal was shelved after budget managers flagged an additional cost of roughly $1.20 per engine. Over hundreds of thousands of units, that trivial cost multiplied into millions in potential savings, at least until warranty bills arrived. The defective engines were thus installed in vehicles across North America, each one a latent hazard, waiting for the right combination of load, temperature, and mileage to trigger failure. What makes this issue particularly serious is its unpredictability. Some engines failed within a few thousand miles, others lasted over 40,000 before locking up. That randomness made diagnosis difficult and allowed GM to argue that the failures were inconsistent with a single systemic cause. Yet internal metallurgical reports later confirmed the consistency of the contamination pattern. Understanding how the failure originated clarifies what went wrong, but it doesn't explain why the conditions that allowed it to happen were never corrected. For that, one must look not at the engine itself, but at the plant and corporate environment that produced it. To understand how a manufacturing powerhouse like General Motors could let a contamination defect escape its factories for 4 consecutive model years, investigators have turned their attention to the St. Catharines engine plant in Ontario, Canada, the main facility responsible for producing the L87 V8. In interviews with former employees, a consistent story emerges: cost pressure and production speed gradually eclipse quality control. Beginning in 2019, the plant underwent a series of efficiency initiatives aimed at reducing per-unit manufacturing costs by 10% over 5 years. When the pandemic disrupted supply chains in 2020, those targets were not relaxed, they were accelerated. By 2021, as global demand for trucks and SUVs surged, management instructed line supervisors to maximize throughput. Quality inspection intervals were cut almost in half. Veteran machinists recall being told to keep the line running, even if they spotted minor irregularities, with the promise that final inspection will catch it. In practice, final inspection was overwhelmed. Production records show that line throughput increased by nearly 30% compared with 2018 levels, while inspection staffing dropped by 40% due to layoffs and attrition. That year, the plant also outsourced part of its component cleaning process to an external supplier to save costs. Internal correspondence later revealed that this contractor had raised concerns about residue buildup in the cleaning baths, concerns that were logged but never escalated. By 2023, early engine failures were already being traced back to batches from this very facility. Yet production quotas continued unabated. One former quality engineer described the environment bluntly: "Every hour the line stopped was a financial penalty." We all knew what that meant: keep it moving. The St. Catherine situation was not unique. Across the global automotive industry, similar pressures were mounting. The 2008 financial crisis, followed by massive investment in electric vehicle development and pandemic-related supply chain chaos, had forced manufacturers to find savings wherever possible. When raw material prices spiked and semiconductor shortages paralyzed production, companies turned to lean manufacturing tactics that reduced redundancy and inspection depth. In GM's case, those savings became a liability. Each eliminated inspection, each deferred cleaning cycle, and each simplified testing protocol introduced microscopic risks that compounded over time. The tragedy is that the warning signs were visible. The same plant had experienced minor contamination issues with other engine components as early as 2019. But with no catastrophic failures then, the lessons were not heeded. By 2024, the cumulative effect of these policies had reached breaking point. The plant's once sterling reputation for craftsmanship eroded into one defined by speed and survival. And as hundreds of thousands of engines shipped out, the financial consequences were merely deferred to future warranty claims. When viewed in hindsight, St. Catherine stands as a microcosm of a broader industrial problem: the quiet erosion of manufacturing integrity under relentless economic pressure. What began as a cost-saving strategy ended as a billion-dollar recall and a reputational wound that will take years to heal. Behind the spreadsheets and quarterly reports are real people whose livelihoods have been torn apart by the L87 engine disaster. What began as a mechanical issue has evolved into a nationwide crisis of trust and financial hardship. Every failed engine tells the story of a family stranded, a small business crippled, or a driver left paying for a car that no longer moves. In Michigan, longtime Chevrolet loyalist Robert Davis watched his family-owned landscaping business collapse. After buying two brand-new Silverados in 2022, both trucks suffered identical engine failures within months. Repair costs totaled $22,000, and warranty coverage was denied because GM categorized the damage as post-warranty mechanical failure. Robert lost several contracts when he couldn't meet client deadlines. "My trucks used to advertise my business," he said. "Now they sit in the yard as reminders of what trusting a brand can cost." For Jennifer Lopez of Arizona, the emotional toll eclipsed even the financial one. She had spent 3 years saving for a used Tahoe, her dream family car. 8 months later, the engine seized on a routine school run, leaving her stranded on a scorching highway shoulder with 2 children. Unable to pay the $12,000 repair bill, Jennifer defaulted on her loan and saw her credit score plummet. "I feel punished for believing a well-known company would stand by its product," she said. In Florida, David Nguyen, who operated a regional delivery company, faced near ruin. 4 of his 6 GMC Yukon XLs failed between 2023 and 2025. Insurance refused to cover the losses, citing manufacturing defects, with vehicles sidelined for months awaiting replacement engines. David filed for bankruptcy. It wasn't just engines that failed, he reflected. It was 20 years of work. These cases highlight a broader economic ripple effect. Repair shops have backlogs of immobile vehicles waiting for parts that may not arrive for half a year. Rental car demand has surged as owners scramble for temporary transport. Local banks report increases in delinquent auto loans tied to recalled vehicles. For many, the sense of betrayal runs deeper than the financial losses. GM's brand had been built on American reliability, like a rock, as its long-standing slogan once claimed. But now that rock appears fractured, families who bought into that promise are discovering that accountability often moves slower than the vehicles that once symbolized it. When the recall was finally announced in April 2025, many affected owners expected an extensive repair plan, new components, comprehensive diagnostics, or at least a temporary replacement program. Instead, GM's official solution drew widespread disbelief. The company instructed service centers to switch to a thicker grade oil and apply a new label to the engine oil cap, reminding owners to maintain the change schedule. That was it. To engineers and consumer advocates, this approach amounted to treating a fracture with a band-aid. The thicker oil can marginally reduce friction and delay bearing seizure, but it cannot remove metallic contamination already embedded within the engine, nor does it address the deeper production flaw that caused the problem. It's an attempt to buy time, said one independent mechanic interviewed by Automotive News. The metal debris will still circulate. It just might take longer to kill the engine. GM argued that the oil change could improve engine durability while replacement parts were produced. Yet internally, supply chain data revealed another motive: a severe shortage of replacement engines. With a single supplier responsible for machining the blocks, production bottlenecks meant dealers faced 3 to 6 month wait times for new engines. Some service departments reported nearly 50 vehicles parked indefinitely on their lots, waiting for parts that may not arrive until 2026. Owners paying monthly installments on immobilized vehicles found themselves trapped. Some rented temporary cars, spending thousands of dollars out of pocket. Others resorted to used engine swaps from salvage yards, avoiding any remaining warranty coverage. Dealerships, meanwhile, faced reputational damage as angry customers filled waiting rooms. Consumer advocates called GM's response cosmetic crisis management. The oil grade switch slightly worsened fuel efficiency, costing drivers hundreds more per year in additional fuel expenses. The company made no public acknowledgement of that side effect. In public statements, GM executives emphasized their commitment to customer satisfaction and insisted that comprehensive remedies were underway, but the gap between that rhetoric and reality widened weekly. Owners described being placed on indefinite hold, dealerships ran out of courtesy vehicles, and independent mechanics refused to service recalled models for liability reasons. The oil label solution symbolized a deeper corporate problem, a company managing perception rather than engineering integrity. The recall may have stemmed the immediate regulatory pressure, but it did little to rebuild consumer confidence or to prevent the wave of lawsuits that was about to begin. The L87 engine recall stands as a cautionary tale for both corporations and consumers. In the rush to cut costs, satisfy shareholders, and accelerate production, one of America's largest automakers allowed quality to erode quietly until catastrophe struck. Nearly 600,000 vehicles, hundreds of millions of dollars in losses, and countless disrupted lives later. The episode underscores a single truth: safety and reliability cannot be deferred to the next quarter. For General Motors, rebuilding trust will require more than public statements or symbolic fixes. It means investing again in the fundamentals: manufacturing discipline, transparent reporting, and genuine accountability. The company's decision to substitute thicker oil for structural correction has become a metaphor for the wider industry's habit of treating symptoms instead of causes. Long-term credibility will only return when automakers prioritize the integrity of their products over the tempo of their balance sheets. For policymakers, the crisis highlights the need for stronger regulatory oversight. Faster defect disclosure laws, harsher penalties for concealment, and broader consumer protection frameworks are already being debated in Congress. International regulators in Canada, Europe, and Asia are watching closely, aware that global supply chains mean a failure in one factory can echo across continents. For consumers, the lesson is both sobering and empowering. Today's buyers wield unprecedented access to information, recall databases, owner forums, and independent testing. Using those tools can mean the difference between a safe purchase and an expensive liability. Consumer vigilance, combined with collective pressure through complaints and class actions, remains one of the most effective forces for corporate reform. The L87 crisis is more than an engineering failure. It is a mirror reflecting the modern industrial mindset. It reveals what happens when efficiency eclipses ethics and when the pursuit of profit outweighs the duty of care owed to the public. Yet it also proves that accountability, though delayed, still exists. As thousands of affected owners continue to demand justice, one message resounds across the industry: the true measure of progress is not how fast we build, but how long what we build continues to last. Once again, thanks for watching this video. If you got something out of this, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Agree, disagree, or something in between. I'd love to hear it.